In today's video, I'm going to be continuing my review of WWE 2K26 for the Nintendo Switch 2. You know, there's a lot of good in this game, but there's also some bad, and we're going to talk about that. First, a little bit of a recap from my part 1 of my review. In docked mode, the game runs pretty well. As you know, previously 2K26 on the Switch 2 had some issues running 8-man matches, but with the last update that we got a few days ago, they now perform at a mostly 60 frames per second. Also, a little tip on that is that you should turn off the camera cuts during your matches. That should also help with the performance of the game. But for the most part, the game performs just fine. My biggest contention with this game is the same negative that everyone else has, and that obviously is the ringside pass. So I'm not even going to touch on that in this video. I might make a separate video that's all about that, but this video is not going to be that. So the game performs well in docked mode, but handheld mode is another thing entirely. So in docked mode, the game performs fine. It performs almost as well as it did in 2K25. Now, while in 2K25 the game performed beat for beat in handheld mode like it did in docked mode, that's not really the case for 2K26. I've spent a little bit more time in handheld mode just to see what people were talking about, because I've been hearing a lot about the issues that this game has in handheld. And I mostly play docked, so I just assume if it runs well in docked mode, then it runs at least almost as well in handheld mode. But there are actually quite a few issues if you play this game in handheld mode. Like I showed in a video a couple days ago, you got Blake Monroe's entrance where it runs perfectly fine in docked mode. The mirror is there and it shows Blake's reflection and everything performs as it should in docked. But if you watch that same entrance in handheld mode, the mirror is going to be all blacked out, and Blake Monroe doesn't even show up until you get to the ramp. Also, there's no reflection in the mirror at all. 8-man matches perform mostly decently in handheld mode, but it's very inconsistent. At some moments the game runs at full speed, then for a few seconds it might slow down. This happens especially whenever a character is outside getting a weapon from under the ring. Then there's also the triple threat match in showcase mode where you go up against, I think it's Rollins and Roman Reigns. For some reason, that match, even though it's just 3 people in the ring at once, that match can sometimes run as slowly as the Inferno match. And if you saw my last video a couple days ago, then you know how bad the Inferno match runs on the Nintendo Switch 2, and that's whether you're playing it in docked or in handheld mode. But this is just 3 people. 8 people runs fine. It makes 0 sense. It's like there's some kind of a memory leak or something going on. So performance in handheld mode is at the very least inconsistent. I wouldn't say that it's unplayable. It's nowhere like WWE 2K18 was, but it is a far cry from the 60 FPS perfection of 2K25 on the Switch 2. I mean, we're talking about a very, very, very noticeable drop-off in quality, at least in handheld mode. Anyway, I'm going to do another video that is going to focus entirely on handheld mode, so if you guys notice any more issues with the game when you're playing it in handheld, list them down below in the comments so we can get some more eyes on these bugs and hopefully we get them fixed faster. Also, it is the case that Shiver Entertainment, that was the group that ported WWE 2K25 to the Nintendo Switch 2 and did a phenomenal job. It actually turns out that they were not involved with 2K26, so yeah, it looks like Visual Concepts handled the porting to the Switch 2 themselves this time, and I guess maybe that might explain a few things. So I don't know, maybe they might have to send this over to Shiver Entertainment and get them to fix this thing. But some issues that are not exclusive to handheld mode are the disconnecting from the server. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not like it happens every 2 minutes or something, but it happens enough that it's noticeable. And unlike in 2K25, it doesn't look like you can just quickly reconnect by pushing the R stick. You have to exit back out to the title screen to get it to connect back to the 2K servers. This happens in docked mode a lot, and you know, I'm not someone who plays the island or my faction or any of those modes very often at all, but if I was, I can see this being a major point of frustration. And today, while trying to get clips from the island, I noticed a bug where I couldn't access any of the menus. I kept trying to push the X button to access the line and nothing happened. My character just stood there looking stupid. The start and select buttons didn't work either. Like, I couldn't use any of the buttons, so I ended up having to just completely exit out of the game and go back in. After doing that, it did work, but the reason that I wanted to test the island is that people kept saying that it kept crashing for them. And there were actually similar issues in 2K25 for the Switch 2 where the island kept crashing for people. I remember getting quite a few comments from people saying that the island crashed for them in that game, and I always told them the same thing, and that was to just uninstall the game and reinstall it. And that did tend to work more often than not, but I went into the island here to see if it would crash for me, and as you can see here, it all seemed to work fine. Like, people were saying that it would always crash after every single match. And I'm not saying that they're lying, but I tried a match here and it seemed to load just fine back into the island menu after I finished the match. I wanted to do another match, but before that, I went back to the main menu just to lower the difficulty back to easy so that I could breeze through it, and just to see if it crashes or not. But I did notice when I tried going back to the island, the game got stuck on the connecting screen that you're seeing right here. It was on that screen for several minutes before I just decided again to just reboot the game. You know, that's the second time that I had to reboot the game while playing the island, and that's just in under half an hour of playtime that I had to reboot the game in the island. So even if the game didn't crash on me, at the very least I can say that the island is very buggy on the Nintendo Switch 2, and it does lend credence to the claims from other people that the island crashes a lot. I don't doubt it one bit, even if it didn't happen to me in these examples. But I guess you can consider leaving me with no other option but to completely exit out of the game. You can consider that to be a form of a crash, I guess. I did say like a week ago that I was going to do some MyRise gameplay videos, but honestly, I couldn't do it. You know, it's not for a lack of desire, it's just that, like you probably have heard in other reviews or other people talking about the game, MyRise in 2K26 is just really not that interesting. In 2K25, you had a big story that maybe it wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but it was a lot more interesting than what we have in 2K26. What you basically get in this mode for 2K26 is you get one story bit, and then you go on about 10 or 12 consecutive matches before you reach the next story bit. Like, that's pretty much it. You know, maybe there's more later on, but to me, it's just not interesting enough. I probably will play it at least until the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, because apparently there's a clothing set that you unlock in that pay-per-view that's gonna make it so that I can download this really cool Shawn Michaels 2005 costume that I found in the Creation Suite. It's basically his costume from WrestleMania 25 when he fought The Undertaker. It looks really accurate and really cool, but you know what? I can't download it because I'm missing that clothing part that you only get it from MyRise. As far as how it performs in dock mode, it's perfectly fine. I haven't seen MyRise crash at all. For handheld mode, I have not tried MyRise, but I think it's safe to assume that everything stated earlier with regards to handheld mode also applies to MyRise. If you head on over to the online options, you'll see here at the bottom that there's a Community Creations cross-platform toggle. What this does is it's supposed to allow you to view creations that other people made on the other platforms like PS5 and Xbox. And it's also supposed to make it so that the creations you make on the Nintendo Switch 2 are visible and playable to people on the PS5. Now we have the option to turn it off or on, but whether it's off or on, we still have the same exact amount of creations on the Nintendo Switch 2. So obviously that tells me that it's not actually working right now, even if it's turned on like I have it here. Now, there's a couple reasons why this might be. One is that 2K did state that Nintendo requires some additional moderation before creations go live, and that makes sense. You know, I'm okay with that. That's perfectly fine with me. 2 weeks seems to be a bit excessive, but the other reason, and the most obvious reason, is that right now, the Nintendo Switch 2 edition of WWE 2K26 is not up to date with the other versions. Remember, the other versions of the game got update 1.04 a few days ago, and us on the Nintendo Switch 2, we're still on update 1.03. Generally, the game would have to be on the same update for parity to be reached between the different platforms. So at the very least, it's possible that cross-platform creations are actually fully functional on the Nintendo Switch 2 right now, but we won't actually be able to use it until we get the 1.04 update. And that, as we know, is not going to happen until the 30th. So that's about 2 more weeks from now. But that's not all that bad right now. We have image uploading now, that works, and there's a ton of really cool creations on the CC right now. Also, there does seem to be some confusion regarding the updates on Nintendo Switch 2. Currently, the game on the Switch 2, as of March 17th, is on update 1.03. That's the in-game server update. You can call it the title version or title update. Generally, all consoles with multi-releases like 2K26 will have the same title update unless there are weird circumstances like what happened here with the Switch 2, where we're kind of out of date right now. However, if you go to the Nintendo Switch 2 home menu and you go over to the 2K26 icon and you push the start button, at the top you're going to see version 1.0.4. That's not the same version as WWE 2K26's in-game update, which is 1.04 for the Switch 2 currently, and 1.04 for the other consoles. What you're seeing on the Switch 2 home menu is a Nintendo-specific registration. That's the software version, basically. It's not the same thing. Okay, you know what? That's going to be it for part 2 of my review of WWE 2K26 for the Switch 2. I'm going to be doing a final conclusion video within the next few days where I'm also going to talk about the online matches mode. I'm also going to talk about other things, and I'll give you my final thoughts on the current state of the game on the Nintendo Switch 2. I'm also going to have some more gameplay videos coming up. Make sure to watch part 1 of my review. A link to that should be on screen right now. Hit the like button to support the channel and leave a comment down below. I'm SwitchPlayed, done.